All right, welcome to Data Hurls. My name is Michael Burke,
And I'm Chris Detzel.
and today we're going to talk about data.
Yeah, I'm pretty excited about that, aren't you?
Absolutely.
All right. Welcome to another Data Hurdles. I'm Chris Detzel, and
I'm Michael Burke. How you doing, Chris?
pretty good, man. How about you?
Good. I'm excited for today's talk. We have a special guest with us today, introducing Chris Detzel as the person talking to us today. I will be asking the questions, which I'm excited to do. Deciding right now whether I'm really going to grill Chris as hard as I can on those difficult questions that he keeps out for me. We'll see.
Yeah.
Chris, how are you doing? How was your week?
My week was really good. I had a great weekend. Did another 5K with my wife, and we had a friend of mine that just got her, I guess, her green card or whatever. She's a U.S. citizen. So that's really exciting. And so we went to that party, and then we had brunch. It was really fun.
Very
And of
nice.
course, now
That's
we're doing
excellent.
work stuff. How about
So
yours?
today, mine was doing well. I had we have this family tradition, which is really fun, where we make jam once a year. Take like
Oh, nice.
quarts and quarts of strawberries, boil them down, reduce them, and we have like tons of jam that we give out for gifts and to family and friends throughout the year. So really good. It's like yeah, I don't know if it's a secret family recipe. I actually don't have a ton to do with it. I go there and like watch the kids and um, but it is just a super enjoyable experience. I love the jam, the output of it, so I reap the rewards. And anyways, enough on that. Today we're
Hmm.
talking about community, right? And I have so many
Wow.
questions.
Yeah.
For those of you that don't know, Detzel in his day job runs an online community, a pretty large and
Yeah.
actually engaging online community. And we were talking about, some of the other things that we can talk about. And one of the interesting things that came up with is, how do you get started, right? There are so many businesses that I think would benefit from an online community. And I think that if you can kick us off with what is an online community, what are the benefits of
Yeah.
it, and how do you get started?
Yeah. So just a little bit of background. I've started 4 or 5 online communities from ground up. And so it's really my specialty. And, a lot of times product companies like to start online communities. And the reason is because one is there's a lot of different reasons and there's a lot of different types of communities, but and we can go into some of that in a minute, but a big reason, like for example, we work at a company called Reltio, and the big opportunity there was one is our users want to connect to each other about similar things that they're working on. It's just like any other community. So, for example, you know, our product can be a little bit complex within their environment, and they want to connect to other users that are using the same product and how they're solving some of these problems. And so, really, the gist of it is really people helping each other to solve these complex problems in their environments. That's the gist of why you would want to build a community. And there's some higher level reasons, why a company would want to do that. And some of those reasons could be at a high level, like case deflection. So, support costs go down. Two could be, leads from a marketing team, like maybe they're looking at influenced revenue or, bringing in marketing type stuff for their account-based marketing type stuff. It could be product adoption, getting your customers to adopt the product heavier so that they buy more. Uh, and, so upsell, cross sells an opportunity there too. Does that help?
No, that's really useful. And I think that it's one thing that I've always been fascinated about is when people turn to communities for questions, especially in the large enterprise space where you have all of these
Yeah.
professional services resources, you have the ability to file support tickets, and yet you're turning to your peers and anybody within this kind of unvetted group to help answer questions or seek advice. What differentiates kind of like your standard Zendesk support tickets or going to your professional paid services versus going to the community? Why do you think people do that?
I think it's access. The more and more I think about why far. Who is involved and engaged in communities? And for us, when we look at who is involved and engaged, um, we have our customers are helping each other. We have our partners helping our customers. We have our partners helping our partners. We have our customers helping our partners. We have our employees helping customers and partners. And sometimes, our employees, oh, wait, I didn't know that, and learn from our customers and partners. So they have access to all of those folks. And so you start building programs, and we can get into, how you start a community from ground up, and we can talk about that in a minute. But you also start building programs like a webinar program, or maybe even a deep dive content blog program that allows your customers to go deep into the product through written kind of stuff, right? And so, the last thing I'll say is that on that piece is one of the big opportunities for, and I kind of wonder, how this changes in the future is that when I build an online community, the goal is for my customers and whoever's using it is to find us on Google on the first page when they look for a question about our product. If I'm not on the first page and they have a question about our product, we lose. If we are on the first page of Google, we don't win. It's just expected, right? And so that I think that it differentiates us from those docs. Docs is just this long form kind of a this is a manual of how to use the product. So people will use docs in a big way, but they also want to just get a quick hit answer as well, and they don't want to wait for support. Support takes a long time, and in general at any product company. And so finding the answers quickly, 2 or 3 days, maybe it's even 24 hours, or maybe it's only a few hours that they find it on community.
That's really interesting. And, I'm just going back to one of my kind of thoughts on, so I don't know if you know this about me, but my first kind of, one of the jobs that I joined years ago, I actually came across the product. It was called LastPass, right? They were a password manager,
Uh-huh.
and I loved the
Yeah.
product. Like, password managers were kind of new. It was a relatively new thing. And so I was on their community board all the time because I used their password manager for business. I used
Mhm.
it personally, and I was giving advice on how to change the product or make it better all the time, right? And not just
Yeah.
complaining, but really passionate about, like, hey, you guys are doing something cool and unique. And they would respond, and they actually built several of the
Yeah.
features, which was awesome. And I felt, unlike
Yeah.
a message board or a place where I'm just trying to get a question answered or docs portal, whatever, I felt a connection to that product and a loyalty to that product after that happened that
Yeah.
I had never experienced with any other product, and enjoyed it so much so that when they were acquired and came to the Boston area, I actually took a job working for that company, um, because I was just so
Exactly.
passionate about it. And I feel like, the reason I'm telling this story is when we talk about community, there are a lot of metrics and other things that you can measure, but there is also this
Yeah.
human element which you don't get with providing a software as a service. And having a voice where you can provide recommendations and actually see those change and
Mhm.
implement into the product brings you that much more closer to the product. And it also allows you to have empathy when something doesn't work or it fails, right? Which I'm
Yeah.
sure we don't like to talk about as much, but it definitely is something that I think gets brought up on these community pages, right?
Yeah, that's right. And I think that, it gives them not just a voice to be heard from the product organization or the organization itself, but it also allows them to show their expertise and how smart they are and how some of the things that they're working on and what they're doing. People want to show you how smart they are. They don't get to tell to their wives or family about all the cool things they're doing, but they get to tell the people using that product, the things they're doing and the cool stuff they're doing and how to fix this thing and how to do it. And people are excited about that, and so it's really fun to see. And one of the things that, and you've seen this firsthand, just, one of the things that you did, for example, as one of the product leaders, you did an Ask Me Anything for our community last week. And the beauty about that Ask Me Anything is that several of our customers were so excited to ask you a bunch of stuff about AI and ML within the product and things like that. But afterwards, you know, this one guy reached out to me, and of course I sent it over to you, and he's like, "Hey man, let's connect with Michael Burke on this thing that we're working on and doing." And we connected today, and he asked you a bunch of questions. I mean, there's like 6 or 7 people in that room asking you, you know, a bunch of questions about the AI ML stuff. And the cool thing was is that community helped bring that together, right? And because
Yeah.
now that guy is going to be a customer for a long time because of the access that he has to you. It's not a lot of companies don't allow that, or whatever, and so and you got to look at, community is providing those kinds of things, and it's really cool to see.
That's really interesting, and I love it. Like, and I would say on the flip side too, being a part of those types of conversations, we learn a lot more. I mean, think about traditional ways that we engage with customers. We have to set up meetings, we have to share product ideas, collect
Yeah,
feedback, and it's from one customer. In these Ask Me Anythings or these big communal events, they can be a bit scary because you're kind of
yeah,
throwing yourself out there, but you're presenting ideas and collecting rapid feedback, right? And a rapid
yeah,
signal on whether or not something's going to work. It's super powerful. So, changing tracks a little bit because we are on data
yeah.
hurdles, right? Um,
We are.
how do you measure all of this, right? From a data-driven perspective, there's a lot of intangibles, I would say, in a community. But with the things that are tangible, what do you track and how do you monitor and measure success? What does that look like for you?
It depends on the stages. So, let's start from day one. And the way I kind of look at data is I do think data is the most important thing that you can do is and collect. But you know what? Too much data sometimes is, you don't want to show, everything to everyone because most people don't care. And so you've
Yep.
got to, one, tell that story of, either the business unit that you're in. Remember, community touches almost every aspect of our business. So when you think of marketing, it touches that because there's leads or there's pipeline revenue generation type stuff. There's, when you think of like product, think of product adoption or ideation. When you think of customer success, think of, renewals at higher rates, upsell, cross sell. A lot of different things, a lot of different touches. And so the story is probably a little bit different in how you build your dashboards, and the data story that you tell is, again, a little bit different. So I would tell you when you first start, it's got to be basic, and I think of, look, if you don't have people coming to your community, then, nobody wants to go to a party that no one's at. So, what I would tell you is that be kind to yourself, one, and then two is, the data that I look at first are very simple. Registrations, who's registering, and how many registrations am I getting maybe each month, and things like that. So you've got to build a strategy and some tactics to drive that, right? There's a lot of different things you can do to get registrations. Two is your content strategy. Is your content strategy right on? Are people, now this takes time when you first build it. Google is not, it doesn't just open up all, automatically or automatic magically. It takes time and effort. But are people reading your content, and is it valuable? It's just like anything. You create a community that people are interested in specific things. So are you creating the right things? And then, like page views is probably one really at first thing that you might look at. I don't recommend page views as being the main thing over time, but how many users are coming to the site? It doesn't. It could be logged in, logged out. Logins are probably a good one. So some basic stuff at first, and then as you get a little bit more sophisticated, um, I start looking at. So I'm in the marketing team, and what marketing cares about is influenced pipeline revenue. So it could be net new business, it could be upsell, cross sell type stuff, or even renewals and how we're affecting that. And so the beauty about community is it can touch all of those areas. For us, it touches more about, upsell, cross sell, and renewals in a big way. So I'm starting to track some of that and how that goes, but that takes a little bit of time. So I think that be kind, start small, and then start getting uh, more into the bigger analytics. Probably takes a good couple of years to do that.
Really interesting. And as we kind of dive into this a little bit more, I would assume that there's some network effects that take place from the community,
Mhm.
whether it's cross engagement, between customers, where there's not a facilitator or an employee going in and answering questions, but you actually see
Yeah,
customers answering customers' questions, um,
that's right.
sharing or kind of exposing content. Do you guys today, is there, you know, are these signals of health, I guess, when you're looking at a community that you're kind of exploring or thinking about? Like, to
Yeah,
me, you think about when you start to gain traction, right? It becomes less about the people who are moderating the group and more about
yeah,
the internals of people communicating to people, right?
yeah. I think, we always want to get to that, but that still does not happen automatically. So,
Yeah,
the way that happens is through a clear-cut engagement strategy, right? So there's tactics to drive those engagements. So it could be, automated emails that go out on a, maybe it could be every few days or whatever to say, hey, there's these questions, can you help answer or whatever. You start building some tactics in. Another good tactic is rewards and recognition. So if you hit, these levels, then you get this thing or whatever. At least you get a badge or things like that. So it's constantly looking at your engagement strategy and the tactics that are driving that strategy to get those people to connect to each other. So I try to the best way for me to is to not answer any questions. It's actually getting um, customers answering each other's questions. But if I just leave it and I didn't drive those tactics, those engagement
yeah,
tactics to get people to do things, it would do nothing. It would just die, or people would just say stupid stuff. You know what I mean? Like it just unfortunately, yes, you don't want the moderator to be the main person. I don't want to be the one on the community all the time. I'm on there some, but it's more about what's the strategy in place to drive those tactics to get people engaged? It's always going to be that way, no matter how big the community gets. As a matter of fact, comes into effect way more as your community grows to hundreds of thousands of people, right?
yeah, yeah, absolutely. And when you are growing this community, um, do you see a lot of product development or feature development come out of the community? Is that a big piece of it? I know that you've done this 5 or 6 times now, I think it was. How how do the organizations use it internally to drive growth?
Yeah. That it's a little harder than you think, but the beauty of it is a lot of times like today, uh, you could see our ideation is on a different platform than our community today. But the beauty is now, over the last 4 months or so, you're starting to see our customers come into the community and post their ideas with the links of their ideas to say, go vote for my idea, go vote for my idea. I'm not
Awesome.
joking. Like it is
Yeah,
really cool to see. And then it is up to me. Like I believe that one product and community should work hand in hand. I mean, I believe that 100%. Like it's about the product, right? And so what do we care? We want to make sure that their voice is being heard. We want to make sure that product is developing the right stuff for our customers. And if they're not going to do it, we've got to communicate that to them, right? Say, if they're so, I bring that to like our leader in product. I'll bring it to the product manager that's working on that specific thing, and you know we we all have ways that we're doing these things. So yes, that is a big opportunity, and it's funny because we have a webinar program, and you're obviously a big part of helping with that. And then our customers will say things all the time to that product person that's leading that webinar for community. And so, they hear it on a consistent basis. And it's just a really awesome thing because I remember one time, not too long ago, a few weeks ago, a customer said, we need this thing on this product. And then this other person, I agree. And then somebody goes, yeah, I agree. And that product manager was right there. So I was like, well, I mean, you know, So the feedback is really great, and the access that we give to these our customers and partners is big. And I want to make sure as a community leader is to make sure that we're talking to each other, that they have the access that they need, that they're being heard. Not
Yep,
just on the online community, but also on the webinars.
really interesting. Yeah, I mean, I know that you know communities are when you talk about that trust and kind of transparency that's built where customers have the courage to come forward and propose ideas,
Yeah,
it's not like they have unlimited free time either and they're just hanging out, right? These
yeah,
are portals for them to pass critical information to you, but it's also ways for us to pass information back as employees. And I think that
yeah,
one thing that always stuck with me was um, that password management product that I worked on previously. They had a breach at one point, and
mm,
it was like a product ending breach. And the CEO hopped on the community, shared a webinar, and then said, provide your feedback, right? And I think at the time, everybody kind of thought that this could sink the company.
yeah,
Um, and what they found out was that a lot of people had more empathy than we would have ever expected, partly because of that community, right?
yeah,
Um, and I think that people are kind of used to that idea of message boards being places where people just kind of blast each other and are rude. But in a lot of these isolated product communities, what you see is people that have invested time, energy, money, and trust into these organizations, and they're there to back them up. Um, so that was always just like an amazing kind of like learning for me to see that people came to his aid and were like, look, things happen, we'll stick by you, let us know how we can help. And these types of scenarios that you're talking about people's passwords right online to like everything that
yeah.
they might have access to you know um, anyways,
Well, I
just
think community.
as I
Yeah, yeah. Go
you go
ahead.
ahead, Chris.
No, it's just kind of piggyback off that is communities can be a very powerful thing in a very positive, probably also in a negative way. The
Yeah,
power of, you know, let's just think about, I don't know, 4 or 5 months ago when Southwest came out with that really bad thing that happened to them with their systems that went down for like, was it like a few days or something, and they couldn't do any,
yeah,
everybody's flights got canceled and everything else. The first thing I did, because they have a very big online community, is I went to their online community and I looked, and people were just killing them, right? But then,
mhm,
Southwest has always been very good at kind of dealing with that damage. And I don't exactly remember what they did, but you know, customers will go in any place to get their voice heard, and community is a huge way of doing that. And if you don't do it right, it could just really you know, nobody wants a really bad community, but I think that with your CEO going on to like that password manager community and then kind of having a webinar and things like that, that's key. Like I think people just, you know, the other piece I'll say about that, like 2 days after that happened, then I went back to that online community, and then people were like, it really sucks that that happened, but I'm gonna give Southwest a chance. You know what I mean? Like they
yep,
just because they starting to turn it around, and it made a mistake. It's okay. It wasn't okay at the minute, but then they started kind of saying stuff, and they allowed all that stuff, and they didn't stop the community or anything else. And I was like, well, that's kind of a turnaround from what I saw yesterday or day before. You know what I mean? Like, so I think, you know, community can be powerful and, can really help your product in a big way. And if you look at our customers, they're enterprise wide, the software we sell, and their lives depend on it. I say their lives, their, work lives depend on it. That's what they
yep,
do on a daily basis. They use our product. And so they want to learn how to do it. They will do whatever it takes, whether it's community or learning the documentation and community can be a powerful thing and helpful thing to our customers and partners. Like I just think it's a huge avenue for them, you know.
yeah. No, I mean, I completely agree. Have you ever worked with communities that expand beyond one geographic region? I know I'm assuming most of them are global, but
Yeah.
How does it, as these things evolve, when you start getting into multiple languages and different cultures, maybe even different versions of a software, how does that work
Yeah.
from a community leader?
Yeah. Yeah. It's so I have built not at Reltio, but in the past, I've built communities that are just German or French or English, right? And so the challenge is one, the platform itself, right? Like uh, some of these platforms just they don't have different language kind of stuff. The beauty about the platform we had when it was a company called Rexel, and they had language resources you can just push in the back end and do it. Now the lift is huge. So yeah, I wonder how much better it would be today with like a chat GPT or whatever. I don't know, uh, the lift is huge, especially if you don't speak the language. The relationships you have to build with these teams, like, you have to find some, like in Germany, for example, I had to work with this one woman on a daily basis to make sure that the all the back ends, from the, every little thing was pushed in the, like when you look at ask a question. Well, ask a question in German is like this freaking long, right? And so one is you have to worry about getting the right ask a question, correct in German, but then the other piece is maybe it's too long for the platform. You know what I mean? Like, and so
Yeah,
you just had to figure a lot of different. And French is completely different, right? So um, it was a big challenge for us. And the beauty about the about English is that most people in the world speak it. Not all people. When you start looking at Mandarin and Japanese and some others, it's a lot harder. Um, and probably the last ones I would have gone to. But I think for us, English is kind of the language today. But when you start looking at SEO, kind of really good stuff there, then doing it in their language is always better if you can. I mean, native language is always, but it's hard. Like, I've done it and it's extremely difficult. It takes months upon months because it's not just you doing the work. It's you having to work with people to do it and they're taking their time off to do it. You got to hire maybe a third party to help do some of it. Some of it's wrong, and it's a continuous battle, to be honest. It's tough. I
that's
didn't answer that
that,
question really well, but
no, no,
it's
no, that's
not
great.
easy.
It sounds really challenging, for sure. I guess, as we don't have a ton of time left, what would you say if you could leave people with the top three things that community drives for a business? What would those be? Um, and I think that we can close out with that. Yeah.
No, it's a good question, and there's a lot of different things. But from a product company, I think of product adoption in a big way. I think of case deflection in a big way. And one thing that we never really talked about, but I think thought leadership is a huge opportunity, and that things that we're starting to do with
Yeah.
our online community. But that specific thing brings in potential leads. It ups your community game. Your people that are very technical. It gets them to understand why you're doing the things that you're doing, not just building these things all the time. And so there's just a lot of beautiful things within the thought leadership piece. So
Excellent. Well,
does that
Chris,
help?
thank
Does
you
that make
again.
sense?
Yeah, this was really helpful. I mean, it's super informative, even for me, somebody who interacts with the community on a regular basis. Really appreciate your insights. Thanks again for jumping on and volunteering to talk today. Don't forget to like and subscribe to us. And also, if you haven't checked out our new website, go to datahurdles.com. We have an email mailing list right now at the bottom of the site. If you're interested in getting updates, we're going to be doing a lot more things as we start to build out this podcast. We'd love to see you on there. So thanks again for tuning in. I'm Michael Burke.
And I'm Chris Detzel, and rate and review us. Thank you.
Thank you.